Thank you.
Kommissar. Wir fahren jetzt fort mit der ersten Runde.
Okay.
A first round from the groups. Firstly, on behalf of the EPP, Mr. Sarvamaa. Go ahead.
And Minister Roth, for your statement and willingness to enter the negotiations. But let me also right away remind us all why we constantly return to this pressing matter in this House. And now finally we are going to address this together. And it's this: our civil liberties are under excessive pressure. Attacks on freedom of the press, civil society and judicial independence are seemingly becoming the standard in some member states. Press freedom and the independence of judiciary should not be privileges for the few. They are the fundamentals for free and functioning democracies. We just cannot allow the values enshrined in our treaties to be systematically threatened or violated by any, and I underline by any of the member states, while EU funds continue to be reserved by the responsible governments. The citizens and taxpayers of Europe deserve a properly functioning conditionality mechanism on the rule of law linked to the budget. The clock is ticking, and now we have to deliver. But a mechanism that cannot ever be triggered in practice due to backdoors or indecisive processes serves only the interests of those who do not wish to see any measures taken. So we urge the Council to join Parliament's efforts to uphold democracy, the rule of law and fundamental rights in Europe, and hope really for constructive negotiations. We simply have to do everything we can in these negotiations. Thank you.
Herzlichen Dank.
Thank you. Now, on behalf of the S&D Group, Mrs. Garcia Perez, go ahead.
Gracias.
Thank you, President. Jacques Delors in 2000 said that the EU is doing well when the institutional triangle is in good shape, so that we have the support of citizens. Now, the Council has reached a blockade on key issues, and that is felt throughout the EU. So we need to move swiftly to overcome this key issue, rule of law, otherwise there will be no progress. My group wants a mechanism for rule of law linked to the budget. Finally, we have a proposal on the table. However, it does not go far enough. It's not just a matter of dealing with corruption. Of course we should tackle corruption, but rule of law is about more than tackling corruption. It is about our shared values underpinning the European Union. That's enshrined in Article 2 of the treaty. The EU is based on values such as respect for human dignity, freedom, democracy, equality, rule of law, respect for human rights, pluralism, non-discrimination, tolerance, justice, solidarity and equality between men and women. That is at the heart of the European project. Far more important than the single market, the Commission report is designed to monitor compliance with the treaties, and it must be objective. It would be wonderful if we could set up a panel of experts to underpin the work of that report to ensure that the EU works well. We cannot allow a blockade in Council. The European Commission sends its report to Council. But what about a qualified majority required in Council? The Council needs to understand that European democracy means that democratic scrutiny takes place here in this chamber, in the European Parliament. We should not give in to blackmail. European Union does not deserve that. We need to look at the calibre of democracy and and economic recovery. There shouldn't be a trade-off. We should be able to achieve both goals. We need to ensure respect for our democracies. We've seen populism on the rise, and there is a risk in all our countries. No one is looking to police or vet their neighbour. Democracy is something that we have to work on day in, day out. It is never a given, so it is important that that message gets through to citizens. Our aim is to help everyone. We want to ensure that the end beneficiaries of funds are not penalised. Some in this House are using twisted arguments to say that we are against Hungary or Poland. That nothing could be further from the truth. We are defending men and women throughout the European Union, regardless of where they live, what they believe in. That is what rule of law is all about. We're not going to abandon them. Our values are the cornerstone of the EU. We need those values to make progress, to move forward, and we will not budge an inch in our defence of those values. Thank you.
Herzlichen Dank.
Thank you. Ms. Garcia Perez. We'll now hear from Mr. Kerner on behalf of Renew.
Vielen Dank, Frau.
Thank you very much, Madam President. We are seeing press freedom reduced. The rights of minorities, money going into the hands of those who are corrupt. All of this is currently happening in Europe, and it needs to be ended now, because this is being facilitated by EU money sometimes. It's going to these autocrats. So we have to stop this. If we look at what the Council has proposed, with all due respect to the German presidency, this isn't really a rule of law mechanism anymore. It's not about the rule of law in general, but just certain very specific violations. It's a pseudo rule of law mechanism. It's not a real mechanism anymore. And that's not going to solve any of these problems because of this issue of the qualified majority. Now, you've tried to explain how Council has come to this position and how we have to come to a common position, but I think I can speak on behalf of a lot of colleagues. We are not going to change our position to fit in with Council's position here. Now, with regards to Orban, it's always one step more. He's always trying to take it that bit further. He's playing with us. He's saying now he's going to block the MFF and the recovery fund. He knows that he would have problems with the rule of law mechanism, with the funding and how it's being used. So we have to uncover this game. We can't allow him to play with us in this way. We need to call his bluff. We need to remain tough in our position, and we will do that as the European Parliament. This is a red line for the European Parliament. We will not bargain in any way when it comes to rule of law.
Vielen Dank.
Thank you. Our next speaker on behalf of the ID is Mr. Rivière. Go ahead.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Rule of law, rule of law. For years you've been criticising Hungary and Poland using that as a term because they don't follow what you want them to do. Last week we heard this again. The European Commission respects its principles, does it? You're talking about political opposition to a judge. Article 6 of the European Convention on Human Rights. Yes, 2017, Madame Le Pen put down a plea against 3 people. Kessler, Mrs. Privado, and Mr. Villo, who is still the Secretary General of our Parliamentary Assembly. This was a case which was denouncing these 3 people within the context of their jobs, and an inquiry which was underway against Madame Le Pen. The Brussels prosecutor several times asked for the immunity of these people to be waived. and members of the European Parliament does this, the European parliamentary institutions. Really, where is respect of the rule of law? Mr. Roth, where's the independent justice that you just referred to? Quite honestly, when we're talking about a parliamentary majority, when we're talking about changes of opinion, difference of opinion, people are criticised for that. Rule of law has to be respected. It's the democratic choice of people. The Polish people have elections. You have to respect the result of those elections in Parliament. The rule of law is the same justice for all, both the majority and respect the rulings of the judges. We're finding these institutions which are suffering from an authoritarian slant, far from the rule of law. Thank you very much. The next speaker for the Greens is MEP Freund.
Thank you, President. Michael Roth. Now, the barrier is so high for this mechanism that we know that there will never be consequences. We've seen this in Hungary already. Say you have a member state where a government gets rid of the judges it doesn't like, as happened in Poland, then the Commission has to prove how this is taxpayers before sanctions can be imposed. It's not rule of law anymore. The European Union or the European Parliament has been calling action for a year and a half. It isn't a compromise. Now, Poland and Hungary are looking to block corona aid for the European Union. We need to call their bluff and really fight for democracy in the EU. Thank you. On behalf of the ECR, Mr. Johnson.
Madam President, Commissioner, Minister, the conditionality, budgetary conditionality, the MFF is an important element. Now we are fighting with the pandemic, but it is overshadowed by a debate, unjust debate, on the rule of law in Hungary and Poland. The Commission also wants to sort out countries into those that are right and wrong. There is no legal basis for this, and also member states are not allowed to defend their own good name. We cannot talk about the rule of law the way you are, the way Mrs. Barley speaks about Poland. I would like to invite Mrs. Barley to Poland to see what Poland experienced in the past. We should not use the language, and I think we should talk about the budget rather than other things.
Herzlichen Dank.
Thank you. I don't like to interrupt the first round with the political groups, but I would call on you to respect your speaking time. We'll now hear from Ms. Modig on behalf of GUI NGL.
Arvoisa puhemies, oikeusvaltioperiaate on Euroopan arvojen.
Thank you very much. The rule of law is at the heart of our European values. If we don't have this as our basis, we have nothing at all. This is so important for our development. We need to have a good mechanism in place here. We want to make sure the proper respect is maintained for rule of law. The Council Presidency proposal is so weak that it doesn't provide any security at all in terms of the mechanism that we can have any effective treatment of the problem when it comes to rule of law. We need to have a proper independent judiciary. There need to be automatic sanctions in place as well in case of problems. There's the issue with the burden of proof when it comes to sanctions. When you have a need for a majority, then it's likely there will be no sanctions at all. President, it's not about the budget in itself, it's about the protection of the rule of law, it's free media and freedom in general. We need to be able to guarantee the rule of law, a free society. We need to ensure that we have rule of law, and it has to be a binding mechanism. So more ambition, please.
Herzlichen Dank.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Ponsati Obiols.
Can you get another mic, maybe? No? Normally, that should work.
Okay, sorry about that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Evaluating the rule of law is difficult, so let's trust objective criteria. The UN report on arbitrary detention has complaints regarding political prisoners in 42 states. Only one is an EU member. Guess who? Hungary? Poland? No, Spain. One of the prisoners, Mr. Junqueras, is an elected member of this parliament. So all Democrats recognize that holding political prisoners is incompatible with the rule of law. However, the commissioners writing their report about the rule of law in Spain have totally disregarded this fact. It's not even mentioned. So how can you want to have credibility when you speak about the rule of law, when you write these kind of reports? This report about Spain is a shame. Last week, the Supreme Court of Spain dismissed the president of Catalonia. The votes of Catalans are not valid to elect MEPs or to elect president. How can you have some respect for these reports? Please act before it's too late. Thank you very much.
Vielen Dank.
Thank you.